Here we are. So we can have the PHP in a number of spots. We can have it before the doc type, so it's before the first tag. Now, normally what we do there is if we want to check, say, for that a user has a permission to log in or maybe run a query or something, we want to do that before we try having any chance whatsoever of sending data back to the client. Okay, it'll become more important when we say second year or whatever. Sometimes in the head we might want to use to change CSS files or maybe put in some JavaScript or whatever. We can do that in the head. In the body, also in the head, what I regularly do it now is I might actually go and change the page title or the page name inside the head with a bit of PHP code. See how you can do that. In the body, that's the normal spot because what we want to do is we want to get content, new content, and put it in there. So if we run queries, that type of thing, do that quite a lot. Then after the body tag, if there's any cleanup we want to do, releasing resources for that it might be on the server or so forth, we can put it in there. Okay. We can also have PHP files that just contain PHP. They don't contain any HTML whatsoever, and that's used quite a lot in we're doing things called AJAX, which is asynchronous JavaScript communications and so forth. But we'll get more into that. No matter where you put it, okay, you have to identify. Remember, the page is going to be processed on the server. So we need something there that identifies a piece of text to be actually the programming language. And in that sense, there's a starting and an ending tag. So the starting tag is that less than question mark PHP. And the ending tag is greater than, or sorry, question mark greater than. Okay. Your PHP code then goes in between. Forward slash is a comment. Forward slash asterisk is the start of a comment block, and then asterisk forward slash is the end of a block, which would be the same as you're doing in Java. Okay, so excuse me. This is where we put our code, and we can literally do loads and loads of things with PHP. So it'll be a great language, and we'll be using it for a while. As a server side, you must have a server, so that's why we have to download XAMPP. And we download XAMPP, it also comes with the PHP pre-text preprocessor. Okay, so now when we download it, you'll have downloaded XAMPP, which was recommended. Inside XAMPP, there is a htdocs folder. That htdocs folder is the actual web-facing folder. So if you type in on a browser localhost, it'll actually bring you to the htdocs folder. We're going to be adding loads and loads of websites, so we don't want to be overwriting them all the time. So what we need to do is every time we want to create a website is to actually go and create a new folder in htdocs. Okay, so I've created a folder called Intro to PHP. Make sure, again, starting out, get things right. Make sure you don't have any spaces in your folder names and don't have any spaces in your file names as well. PHP gets really upset with that type of thing. Okay, so we'd create a folder, and then inside that folder, then we would have our PHP pages, and a PHP page will have an extension of .php as opposed to what we were doing previously, which was .html. Now you can get one of your .html files and actually just rename it as whatever the name is .php, and it would look identical. Okay, there'll be no PHP in it, but it will resolve as a HTML file, no problem whatsoever. The URL that you would use then for any folder will be http://localhost// the folder name. Okay, as we'll see now in a wee second. That's XAMPP there. You get the XAMPP control panel. We just need to start up the Apache server and the MySQL server. We won't be using MySQL today. We will in the coming weeks be using it. You can type in localhost in your browser and it'll just show you what you have. So if I just go localhost, it comes up with this here, right? There's one there called PHP info, which gives info on the PHP page. And there's also another one there called PHP MyAdmin, which is administration for your database, your MySQL database. Okay, and that will load up slightly. It takes a little bit longer to run. And we can see there all your different databases that you might have. Okay, so there are things to look at and enjoy. The rooted htdocs folder is the root of the server, and it does come populated with some important files, which allow you then to just type in localhost, and you can go and look at PHP info, and you can go and look at PHP myadmin. So don't overwrite those files. Always create a new folder, and your URL then will be localhost / whatever the folder name is / whatever the file name might be. Our development environment, we're going to carry on using Notepad++. So that won't give us any extra confusion. The thing though is if we want to see, whereas previously we could just go and run in the browser, in Notepad++ we can't do that anymore. We can just edit in it. We need to actually go into a browser and put in the URL and view it from the web server, which is in the htdocs folder. When we create a new folder, also change the name of the or the language to PHP. Okay, so make sure it's PHP for the language. Okay, so we've got a couple of things here we're going to try. First thing is we're going to create a page that has, it's just going to print out hello world. And this essentially is going to look like this here. Okay, if we right click and view the page source, we don't see any PHP in there whatsoever. Okay, it's all just HTML that's there. If I actually look in the Notepad file itself though, we'll see here that I have a piece of PHP in there. But what has happened is the echo has replaced all of that PHP. And this typically happens. What happens is that when we execute a piece of PHP, we'll have some kind of an echo, which is going to send information in HTML format back to the browser. And that'll only get shown. We won't actually see the actual details of the PHP code itself. So that gives us a bit of security on the whole setup. Now, if I was to run this from here, if I go run launch in Chrome, it'll just show me the code, right? It won't actually render it because it needs to be on a server for it to render. So that's why I come in here, do localhost / the project or the folder name, and then the actual file name. So that's roughly where we were the other day, okay? There are some predefined functions that come with PHP. You could do a quick, if you do a quick Google PHP and a function name, it'll give you all the help you need on it. Stack Overflow is very good for getting details. Code Academy is very good, and W3 Schools is okay for getting information on PHP. So there are use sources, use them. Be careful when you're using Stack Overflow, and not just Stack Overflow, but other websites like that, where you've got forums that people are answering questions. Normally, the right answer is the last one. It's a little bit like when we're searching for something, we always find it in the last spot we looked in. That's because we stopped searching that. Okay. You might find some of the first answers on Stack Overflow may not actually be right. Okay, so keep that in mind. So the thing there you can try is just doing echo PHP info, which has done that the other day, and you'll see that you're able to get the information being shot up. So manipulating assets then is an important one as well. I created a new folder in the root called image, where I'm going to put my image. I just took a copy of DKIT picture and saved that in and called it DKIT.jpg. So if I want to, I can run that and it will actually display the information. So what I want to do is I want to echo details that will actually simulate the HTML to show the picture. Okay. Now, an important thing here is PHP uses quotes for strings. So strings are put together using the period or the full stop. So we can join different strings together. But the other important thing to remember is that PHP can use either single quotes or double quotes to define the beginning and the end of a string. Within that, and we know within our HTML and with JavaScript, we'll sometimes find that we might write a piece of code, HTML code, which itself uses quotes. So this can cause us some confusion, right? The best thing is to always decide yourself what you're going to start your PHP quote with. I use double quotes, okay, but there's no reason why you can't decide you're going to use single quotes. Then anytime you want to represent a quote inside of that string, you just use the opposite. So if I'm using double quotes and I want to represent a quote inside a string, I'll use a single quote. If I'm using single quotes to define the beginning and the end of a string, and I want to have a quote on the inside, I'll use a double quote. Okay. So I've given you some examples here, and we'll see that what actually happens in this line here, line 16, is that it starts off as being a double quote, and then when it gets the next double quote, it says, right, that's the end of the string. Then the next piece of text, it will expect that to be some kind of PHP instruction, okay? It will like, there's nothing here, so it's going to be an error, right? Then the next double quote will be the beginning of the next string, the next double quote will be the end of that string, and then there'll be some information and so forth, okay? We can see though here that for the second line, 17 and 18, I start with a double quote, and then inside where I want to have that source information for the image, I have single quote, and then also for the alt text, I have single quotes as well. Then the double quote at the end. That works perfect. Or the opposite here is where I start with a single quote and end with a single quote, and I have double quotes in between. So whichever of those you like, go with it, right? But that's the main one. What I want you to do is to try and get a display to work on your page. Okay, so that's one thing to do. There's a couple of things I'm going to throw out here that you need to do, right? There's variables here in PHP. They have to start with the dollar symbol. Server global variables typically start with dollar underscore. Don't worry about that. We'll worry about that in a short period of time. But global variables are typically server variables, as we'll talk about. Other variables start with a letter. So $A. It has to be a letter. It can't be a number. Okay. Now, this is important. Variables are case sensitive. Okay. So dollar lowercase a and dollar uppercase a are two different variables. So be careful with that. And the first letter of any combination of alphanumeric and underscore can be used. Okay. After the first letter. Strings are joined together by the period or full stop. Okay. So if I want to join two strings together, I use a full stop. Now, I'd like you to play around with it, or maybe make up a couple of variables, add, multiply them together, and then display the results. Would be something that would be an interesting thing to try, like we done last week. Passing variables between pages, we have two methods to do that: the get and the post method. Okay, so the get method is essentially also sometimes called the URL method. The variables are passed as part of the URL, as part of the address. The post method is sometimes known as the form method. The methods are actually passed as part of the header. Okay. So I guess it's a little bit like if we take like a letter, the get method has the address on the outside or the data on the outside. You can see it. The post method has the information inside the envelope, is in the header as such. So the simplest method is the get, and we've got here is dollar or question mark variable is equal to value. The data, when we send it from the client to the server, has to have a name and a value. Okay, so in the HTTP structure, the name is defined as or a variable is defined firstly as following a question mark. So we have a URL, so index.php question mark. We then have the variable name equals and then the variable value. If we have any subsequent values, so if you want to pass the second, third, fourth parameter across, then we use the ampersand, the and symbol, okay? And that separates, and again, you have the value pair. So the variable name equals variable value, okay? So there's examples of that here. So there's two pages I'm going to show here. Just again, it's just to show you a little bit with what you can do with PHP. So here's the animal select page, and I've got two links. I'm a cat, I'm a dog. So if I click I'm a dog, it comes up the dog page and it shows I'm a dog person. You can modify that yourself to, if it's a cat page, grand. And you see here in the URL, what it's actually doing is it's passing a variable called question mark my animal. So that's the name, the variable name is equal to cat. Okay. And you'll see here in the actual code, what's happening here is that it's checking to see what the value of cat is. It's doing a thing here, my pet, filter underscore input underscore get my animal. Okay, we're using the get and the variable name is my animal. We get the value. I'm just checking here if it is null, which means it's empty. It means somebody hasn't passed the value. So it'll print out no animal select to try again type of thing. Okay. What's down here is just using the variable my pet to do things right and display it. Second method is the post method, which is given here. We've got a form. So this is like a form that we've used previously. But inside here now we now have inputs, and the inputs have types and they have name. Remember, we've used ID for the JavaScript to get element by ID. Name here, whatever the value is there, that's going to be passed to the server. And we can then use the post global variable to get that. Okay. So there's an example there. First name, and the output then is this one here. My name is Peter. And you know what? I haven't given you the code for that, have I? Yeah, no, I haven't. And the reason I haven't given you the code there is this is using the post method. So you would use something very similar to this, but for input underscore post, get the name and display the name. So that's the tasks that I want to use to get to today, right?